Hello fellow 3D enthusiast, my name is Ian, and today I wanted to show you how you can make some roots in Blender really quickly. And I'm using the Eevee engine here, and what we're going to use to make the roots are just some simple curves. And it's fairly easy to get this effect, so I'm just going to hop into a new scene here real quick, and I'm going to show you how you can do it. First of all, we're probably going to want to drop the 3D cursor where we want the roots to start, so I'm holding Shift and right click to place that where I want it. And then what I'm going to do is hit Shift A and go to curve here, and we're just going to select this top one. If we grab that with G and move it above the surface, we can see that a little bit better. Now this is going to be the curve we start out with. If we just go into edit mode with tab and go over here, I'm going to hit X to just delete what we have here at the moment. As you can see here, there's this tool that says draw. I did a practice run for this tutorial, so it's already selected, but make sure you select that. Also, if you hit N, if you look in the side panel here and select the tool tab, you can see all the specifics of how your draw tool is going to work. Now by default, it's set to be on cursor for projection depth, but what we're going to do is set it to surface so that when we draw, it'll just stick to the surface of whatever we're drawing on top of. And I'm just going to start by doing a stroke from the 3D cursor, and you can see immediately we get this super cool result of it just kind of sticking to the rocks here. Now before we keep adding roots, I'm just going to quickly add some depth to this one. The way I'm going to do that is by hitting Shift A once more and add in a circle curve. And if we grab this and just kind of move it over there, we can see it a little bit better. I don't need a whole lot of resolution for this, so I'm just going to set this down to like maybe 3. And you can see it's a lot sharper now, but that's okay. We're going to have a lot of roots, so let's save some geometry here. Now if we go back to our original curve here, in the curve settings, I'm going to go bevel and just select this dropper tool and then select our circle that we just created. Now you can see our root is super wide right now, so if we scale this down, that's probably something we'd like a little bit better. And it's also a uniform thickness all along it. Usually with roots, they're a little bit thinner down at the ends of them. So let's add in one more curve, just this top one again, grab it and move it over. And this is going to be our taper width. So I'm going to reselect the original curve. Once again, use our dropper tool and select that curve. And you can see immediately our curve is quite a bit thinner, and it's whip thin at the end here, and it's a little bit thicker, and then it gets thin again at the top. And that shape is pretty much determined by our curve object here. So if we grab this and, we're still in draw, probably want to go into move mode, but if we select this end here, and just kind of grab it and move it out, you can see our starting end gets thicker, and the more we move it out, the thicker it gets. And that's the same with the end down here. We can just kind of move that out to get the end a little bit thicker if we want, and that's all to taste, however you want to do that. If you want to make it even crazier, you can select everything with A and right click and do subdivide. That adds a new control point here, and with this we can just rotate it. And you can see it gets thick and thin and thick and thin again. But we're not going to do that for now. We just want this basic shape. Now that we've got the thickness sorted out, let's keep adding a few more roots. So I'm going to hop back into edit mode with tab, back into draw mode, make sure surface is selected here, and I'm just going to draw a few more roots. There's not a whole lot of method to how I'm doing this. It's just kind of crazy and going all over the place like normal roots do, I would guess. If you want to do a few shorter ones at the top, you can, just to kind of cover up the seams. And the way it projects these objects is not perfect, but it's pretty cool because when you get one root already there, the other ones just go over top of it and make kind of a bump thing, which is super cool. We could get one big root that kind of goes over all the edges there, kind of covers stuff up, and just keep going. And you can make this as crazy as you want it. As you can see, this can get really complex really quickly with very little effort, and you can get some pretty nice looking results. Now if we go back into rendered view, you can see this isn't terribly exciting, so let's just add a material real quick. I'm going to hop into shading, add new, and I'm going to use my principled shader here, and just kind of plug in a few textures to that. Now I have a few textures here from textures.com, and those are completely free there. You can just look those up fairly easily. So we've got deciduous and we've got tropical, so really this is not very realistic, but who cares? I'm just going to mix these together with a RGB mix node, and just pop those both in there. And let's get some texture coordinates on these really quick. So I'm going to go Control T, and you can only do that if you have Node Wrangler enabled, which I highly recommend doing. And I'm just going to kind of plug this stuff in as generated to mapping, and then vector to both of our textures. You can see with these textures, I've set the texture type to be box, so it projects it from all sides of the root rather than just from the top. And I've turned up the blend a little bit, and that's the same with both of these textures. If we take a look here at this mix node, it's very interesting. Let's work a little bit more on this. Just go texture and add in a Musgrave texture. I'm just going to drop this factor into that factor. And if we take a look at this, it's pretty huge at the moment, so let's turn up the scale a little bit. Got some nice randomness going on. And this still looks pretty bad, so let's go down into the scale on our mapping node and just drag across all those and then move them to the right so that we get a little bit more texture detail going on. If we look back at our mix node, we finally have some stuff going on, so that's pretty cool. I'm going to drop a color ramp here real quick, and we can just mess with the values if we want, but that's not super important. We probably want these to blend together a little bit, so we don't need it to be super harsh. So far, we just have this mix node, and it's not really plugged into anything, so let's just grab this and drop it into color and roughness, as well as normal. I'm going to go Control and Shift to view our principal node here, and these inputs aren't going to look very good just by themselves. As you can see, it's super weird looking at the moment. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is for the normal, go Vector and Bump. And instead of getting this input to be into normal, I'm going to drop it into height. And that's super bumpy at the moment, so I'm going to back off on the strength a little bit. And for roughness, we probably want to drop in a quick color ramp there. And just kind of back off on this crazy shininess as well. Okay, that's a little bit better. One thing we probably want to take down in the main node is the specular, because that just makes everything look all wet. Which is cool if you're making a waterfall, but these are roots. Alright, so I'd say that is the material pretty much set there. It's nothing spectacular, but I think it looks pretty good. So you have your roots here, that's pretty cool. There's one more trick that I'd like to show you, and if you're into animations and time lapses, I think this will be pretty cool for you. If we go into our curve settings once more with this selected, and we look down at bevel here, whoa, you can see these two values that say start and end. And if we start cranking the end down, you can see there's these ends that are just kind of receding up into the start of their curves. And this is actually a super cool way to get animations of roots growing, or chords, or any sort of crazy sci-fi stuff you want. Kind of looks like the Matrix. But you can animate this value by hovering your mouse over it and going I, and that'll put in a keyframe down here on the timeline, and we can just go to frame 50, say we want to grow it all the way, hit I once more, add in another keyframe, and look at this. That's pretty crazy. So that is it for this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful, and if you did find it helpful and you'd like to see more tutorials like it, there is a link in the description that says free hydraulic kit bash elements. And I know that doesn't really have anything to do with roots, but every once in a while I like to work on some mechanical stuff, and having a few hydraulics sitting around really gives me a jump start. So when you click this link, it will add you to my email list, and I'll make sure the first thing I send you are some free hydraulic kit bash elements, which you can use however you please. Whenever I post a tutorial, I just send out. So that's pretty much it. I hope you have an excellent day, stay safe, and cheers!